Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
I'm going to do it. Hi, my name is Brent. I'm being held in a basement somewhere in Central Time Zone. I'm being tied up with HDMI cable, the really thick kind that you used to get at Best Buy back in the 90s. It cost about $200 for 50 feet. It's not that thin stuff from Amazon, so it's really tight. I'm under duress, and I'm told I need to read this intro for a podcast, so I'm going to try my best. Okay. Welcome to the Hometown Hollywood podcast, where you can find advice, inspiration, and strategies for success for talented people that are making a name for themselves inside the film industry, but outside of major cities. Here's your host, Travis Myers. Okay, and I'll give you a real one.
If you ever want to see Brent Christy again, you'll subscribe to the show and write a positive review.
Please, 5 stars is still, even if there's something wrong, 5 stars, a perfect score really helps. The star system isn't like the other systems where, 4 stars is like, it was almost perfect, but this is something that could change. Just give it 5 stars anyways and tell us, kind of a nice way what was wrong, but it was probably good anyways.
This is the best introduction I've ever had. I'm sorry, previous guests. You were just outdone. Hey, my name is Travis Myers, and this is the Hometown Hollywood podcast. Today's guest is Brent Christy, a cinematographer and director in Charlotte, North Carolina. In this interview, Brent talks about working with high-caliber people. He goes more into detail by what he means by that, but I would just like to insert quickly that Brent is definitely a high-caliber individual. You can tell very quickly that he has a selfless personality and really appreciates the relationships he has with his family and peers. As a side note, on the day we were supposed to record the episode, there were some technical issues that required us to push back the interview, but we ended up having a long conversation anyway, where Brent took the time out of his busy schedule to give me some much needed personal guidance on my own career and life path. Even if you took his talent in filmmaking out of the question, Brent Christy would still be on the top of my list of high caliber people. If you need some motivation on being intentional with people, story, and your filmmaking, look no further than the advice Brent gives on the show. Also, because life got a little crazy after recording this episode, it took several weeks to upload this interview, and Brent has done some amazing work in the meantime, so be sure to check out his work and the links I'll leave in the show notes. In this interview, you'll learn about Brent's journey into filmmaking, becoming an incentive chaser, how to work with others on set, networking with high-caliber people, comparing and contrasting collaborating with talented directors such as Shea Sizemore and previous guest Justin Robinson, working with basically no lighting package versus large lighting packages, balancing family life with pursuing a film career, directing and dp'ing Western-adjacent feature films, getting the completeness of your ideas on the canvas, how the good stuff is never easy, and the power of simple encouragement. Brent is one of my heroes, and it was an honor to hear about his journey in the film industry. Whether you know it or not, you've waited a long time for this interview, so let's get right into the show. Brent Christy, welcome to the Hometown Hollywood podcast.
Thanks, Travis. I'm glad to be here.
So, Brent, I really love your work. You have worked on a lot of stuff. I look on your IMDb, and there's just short after short after feature at all ranges of projects, and I love the style of your work. Just love everything about it, Brent. We're going to get into a lot of specific projects, but tell us, how did... That sounded a little bit like the interrogation.
Yeah, I mean, I'm under. I told everybody I was under duress, so it's the tone already.
Tell us now. How did you get your start? Did you go through film school? Did you just do your own thing on YouTube? Tell us, who is Brent Christy?
I'd be glad to share that. I started working at cable access television stations around Eastern Michigan, where I grew up. Shortly after high school, I was looking for whatever was next. I was really into music. I was a sound mixer at the church I attended. I was in a pop punk band and all of those things. And at the same time, it was a joy to do all those things, but I didn't have a direction, and I didn't feel like I had a path forward in that. And somebody told me, well, you you have a nice voice. Have you ever thought about radio, this and that? So since I had all the technical knowledge from audio recording at the time, this is in the early 2000s, I went to community college, started a program there, and one of the requirements of the radio program is that you also need to be a part of the television studio program and kind of dip in and out of those students' requirements. And when I picked up a camera, everything changed. I was not very good at the guitar. I was, at this place where I didn't put in the time to take myself to the next level. And when I picked up the camera, that became something where it seemed like an infinite amount of avenues, things to learn about. How do you capture an image? How do you tell a story? I mean, the simplicity was intriguing, and that's really when the obsession started. I haven't played guitar since, and I have been completely focused on the camera. So after that experience at community college, did cable access television for high school sporting events and did some announcing for those sports as well. But then I got to touch the cameras, run the cables, set up audio equipment, and we did city council meetings, all this basic stuff that led me on a couple years of following a path towards, well, maybe television, is a way to go. And but it all still was focused on the camera, and that brought me to Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida, or Winter Park. And I went to get a film degree there, and all of a sudden, lighting became something that was on my radar, and understood that you needed to have exposure to record something. But all of a sudden, a 10-ton lighting package and a soundstage was made available, and the hours were really yours to make, and we could all of a sudden play with all this equipment and get our hands on things that I never would have otherwise. So that's kind of where it started, and then I've really been an incentive chaser ever since. Moved back to Michigan. I now live in the Carolinas and work a lot in Georgia, and a lot of it is just based on incentive filmmaking for feature films. And along the way, I've met a lot of great writers and directors like Justin Robinson and Shea Sizemore and Gary Wheeler, who have all been crucial to my development and opportunities to just shoot anything and everything, whether it's a short film or now it's on the feature level. But that's a long-winded answer.
When you say that you are an incentive chaser, what does that mean to you?
Yeah, it's a term that I've never heard before. I completely made it up and identified with, because it's this funny note in my career, to be an incentive chaser who did not live in LA or New York, who could still work on feature films, whether it was in Michigan or North Carolina or Georgia, and other states for that matter. But being able to live in those places and work in that way is something I don't take for granted. And it's chasing, because most state incentives don't last that long. The 42% return on investment in Michigan did not stay that way for long. And Charlotte has ebbed and flowed, Charlotte, North Carolina, and Atlanta, Georgia has really found a rhythm. Much of Louisiana, New Orleans, did it well for a long time too. And I have friends in all those places who have found work outside of the traditional Hollywood system that you think of in LA and New York. And while there are opportunities to work there, I've valued not living there, and that's just been that's just been a value of my wife and I, and what the experience that we want day in and day out has been great. Moving throughout the Midwest and throughout the South, and I can't say that we'll always approach it this way, but up to this point, it's been great to have a little bit of land, a little bit of a backyard for my two little boys to run in, and to also be able to work with some high caliber people and high quality people who you when you work on a production with somebody, you're in each other's personal space for months at a time, and then you may never see them again. It's this really unique experience making a feature, and to do it outside of Los Angeles and New York has been a great privilege.
I know that's often a question like, well, what do you think about film school? Do you need to go? Are the ads for Full Sail University, is it as good as they make it seem? It sounds like you were able to take advantage of it, and it was a great thing, because I know a lot of people just have mixed opinions on whether you should go or not. What do you think? When do you think it's right for somebody to go to film school, or why do you think that would be important versus going just the do-it-yourself route?
Yeah, I think you have to know who you are as a person. I know I needed some extra guidance. I like being in the midst of those who know much more than me, and with the opportunities in front of me and the relationships and network that I had at the time, I did not see a path forward. And Full Sail for me was a great chance to create a network. And there's people I'm still friends with today from that class that I was in, and the opportunities that came after that, into the real world, were all thanks to meeting other people who were obsessed like I was, and we went to the next level. I think if you're the kind of person that can read a book or have the confidence to jump into something and say, no, I can figure this out, I think you totally should. I think you probably know yourself, if you're someone who's asking that question, should I do film school or not? If you feel like you can succeed in that environment. I wasn't necessarily a good student in high school, but when I was there, it's not quite like school. It's definitely you touching pro equipment. You're getting right into a studio. They say, okay, well, make a film, and we all make these terrible films. And, so much of that the reflexes that I got from that experience, they're still part of my muscle memory today. There are plenty of projects or short films. I'm always excited to meet a new director. If there's a director who has a vision and who's excited about a project, and they see a collaboration between us, if I can come along as a DP and provide vision and be an additional help on the technical side, but also, really help curate the environment of a set, help build into the crew and what everybody is feeling on the set, no matter what crew position you're in. There's a lot of things that go into a production in general, but even on the short film side, I've loved the experiences I've had, and again, people like Justin and Shea, who have become lifelong friends through the process. I just met by happenstance. We were doing other things, and we saw kindred spirits in each other, and we went and did a thing. And those freebie productions that we did, where, freebie to a certain extent, I mean, Justin and Shea put immense amount of their own collateral into the things that they do. So it's, to a negative balance sheet, in the early stages, but it's led to the work that pays me, and the work that I do now is having the ability to show what you've done in the past, and hopefully a short or two comes out, and on the positive side, and you say, wow, I think we landed the plane on some of that. Or, so much of what is needed today is, well, maybe this production you worked on doesn't have a beginning, middle, or end, but did you have a handful of screen grabs, or can you make a reel from it? I think so much of Instagram, I've gotten jobs from Instagram. It's a really unique time to be able to put what's in your mind on a screen, in a screenshot, into a reel, into a production. And that's certainly not a way to do it forever. But I think if you're starting out and you need to build, a reel, especially as a young DP, a young gaffer, anything like that, just put the work in. If it never turns out, you never show anybody. The worst that can come of it is, well, I wouldn't do it that way again. Or, boy, that technique I put into practice was very useful. I'm going to keep that one with me.
Very cool. You talked about the relationships you have with Justin Robinson, Shea Sizemore, Andrew Bradford. I've noticed while doing my homework on you and the projects that you do that they seem to be there with you all the time. I think one of the reasons that I really like filmmaking, it's a chance for me to get some of my best friends together and make memories that we'll never forget, and we'll will tell our grandkids. So how did you meet these individuals? And I guess after working with them so long, what's it like collaborating with them and working with them now?
Well, Justin and I met. We were both on a production where we were both camera operators, probably 8 years ago now, and with Shea, we met by happenstance through another connection. I think Shea was looking for a DP for a short film, and we had not met before, but we had some people in common, and we got introduced. And in both of those scenarios, I think we found kindred spirits, and that we loved filmmaking. We wanted to be making films on a bigger level. And in the case with both Shea and Justin was that here was an avenue where, well, here's a short film. Here's an idea. Do you think we can do this? And, it's just that spark that was needed to, start the fire of those relationships. And with both Shea and Justin, we've done dozens of projects together, and that's for a reason. We've loved working together because we all have families. We all understand the commitment that it takes to jump into something where you're not getting paid your day rate, or getting paid enough to move the needle with one single project. And to do that anyways, I think you have to really like the people you're working with to jump into those scenarios. Now, there are times where I've shot short films with a director, and we've not worked together again for one reason or another. Certainly to share this analogy with these people who have been really a large part of my life outside of the film industry is to say, I was really fortunate to find my people early on. Now, if you're someone who's looking for those opportunities and to network and meet people, I can't guarantee a timeline of when you'll find those people that you connect with the most. But even for me, there are times where I've connected with future collaborators when we've been doing different roles on productions years earlier. For example, I was working on a feature as a gaffer, and we had an intern that came on for the last few weeks of the production. We connected and stayed in touch, and 5 years later, he was producing his own feature, and I came out and did the second unit DP work for it. And first of all, it's a great example. If you never know who you're talking to, it's a great reason to not to treat everybody as you want to be treated for the sake of your career or for the sake of, well, everybody's gonna get me something. But humankind, we're all part of the human condition, and to recognize that every production takes everybody. It takes everybody to jump in. Now, everybody might not be investing the same sweat equity, but I'm a firm believer. I want to know everybody's name on the set that I'm working on. I want to be able to gauge the temperature of, okay, this department's a little bit slower than I'd like to be. This department, they're on their A game. I can lean on this department for this. Maybe I need to help this other department or these other members of this department with this. Even though I'm a DP, how can I jump in and help a little bit outside of my zone? What can I do to provide a win for this movie and this production? And I think it's so important to really look at it that way. Even early on, you talking about the work that you've liked of mine. I can't own it solely. So much of what's out there and so much of what's put together it's a huge village that needs to come together to get a movie made, short film or feature length. A lot of hands go into it, and I don't take that lightly. And I can't remember what the question was that got us here. I think it was about working with the people I work with a lot. The reason that I work with them a lot is because we all want to help each other grow and do the next thing. Shea had a short film recently that I came out and gaffed, and it was a great, for one, a great opportunity to sharpen the sword mentally as someone who loves lighting and get back into the place of, okay, my responsibility is a little bit less. It's completely focused in this one area. To be a successful filmmaker and part of a film community, you need to be able to provide a work ethic and the ability for others to work with you. So that, first of all, that's important. And whatever your crew position is, I think you probably will be dipping into, let me help you carry that table, with a scenic person or someone greens. Let me help you carry those trees. Okay, I see. It's just again breaking it down to the human level and not saying, well, this position is mine, I can't step out of it, and blah blah blah. Certainly, there's a time and a place for that, but there's also a time and a place to be a human being to one another. And I think guys like Andrew Bradford and Justin Robinson and Shea Sizemore have shown time and again that they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves. And we've all worked on each other's productions in different roles and in different ways, just to help, the other one, see an opportunity through.
Okay, so let's talk about some of your work with these people. There's two that I really love, or I don't know, they hit me a little harder, is Snowbirds and Low Country. I think both of those, if I ever shot something that looked as good as those short films, then I could just quit and live happily in the swamps of South Carolina and eat crabs in someone else's cabin or something and just live the rest of my life like that and be happy.
Well, I mean, that short film is a how-to on how to do that. So if you want to be a drifter, watch Low Country. That's kind of the advertising piece of it, on social media. It's like, do you want to learn how to be a drifter? Watch Low Country. And so we've gotten a lot of views that way. It's not on the nose, but it's more of a wink. Okay. Like, you get what we're saying, right? This is how you do it.
Well, I learned a lot from it.
Yeah, I love both of those productions, and maybe a through line between both of them is that they both came at a time. I can really only speak from my perspective for both Justin and Shea, but what I can say for both Snowbirds and Low Country is that as a DP, I can easily say so much of the look came from both of those directors. That it's, especially Snowbirds, Shea and I have a different relationship than Justin and I do when, as far as a DP director is concerned. Yeah. Justin completely shapes his storyboards. He completely shapes the shot list. He operates camera sometimes because he's got the vision. He's got this moment and this. Sometimes when you get the spark, and I love that about him, and I love that about. Again, when I think about filmmaking, I don't think about it as, why is the director touching my camera? I'm thinking about it as, oh, we're here. He's got the vibe. He just caught something and he's running with it. Let's get it. And I want to come in, and I'll jump in and hold a French flag to block a little bit of sunlight, or make sure that turn into camera support mode. Whatever it is that makes that moment better. Like the opening shot of the film behind the gravestone. It was Justin operating. He had the zone. We were in the vision. It was getting to dusk, and he said, "Hey, I've got this set up. I've got an idea." And he's a great operator, and he's very skilled as a camera technician as well. Even though he doesn't pursue that, he has that gifting, and I think that helps being able to speak that language as a director. He's using that to his advantage. Now, Shea is different. He doesn't come from a camera background or having done a lot of work in that realm. He is a strong editor. He's a strong writer. He comes from this place of thoughtful reminiscence of, he has this, seems like this endless well of ideas and turns, and spontaneity it happens a lot on Shea's sets and on the short films that we've done together. We have a shot list and we have a direction, but man, you said this beautiful, I saw you wink this way. Or Shea is just like Justin as well, but Shea is observant, and he's just present, and both of those directors are present, and that is such an important thing. So if there's anything to say about the look and the tone and what worked well about those, I can tell you the thing that brought it together was that each of those productions had two leaders who communicated their vision well.
Yeah, the two films, like you said, they have distinct looks to them, and that they were very much influenced by how the director wanted the story.
Yeah.
How were the like the lighting packages? Like, how did you approach the lighting for Low Country versus Snowbirds?
Now that's where they completely differ. Low Country was a film that had no lights. We only used practical lighting for the liquor store, for example, where he's silhouette outside. He takes a drink from the wine bottle. When he's in, I'm trying to think now. There's plenty of scenes that we shot that didn't make the final edit. There's a kitchen scene that doesn't quite make it to the final film that we use the practical lighting there. But if you go back and watch the film, it pretty much takes place during the daytime. And we had small modifiers if we wanted to, if I wanted to bounce a light using a flex fill, into the eyes or something. That's something that worked really well on that film. But I mean, the guitar scene at the beginning, I go back and watch that sometimes and still choke up. It's just this raw moment that was beautiful to witness. And that's just the sun setting, and it's naturally bouncing off the walls, and that set is just filled with this natural, beautiful beach sunlight. And so that one we just took advantage of natural light. And with Snowbirds, it was a little different. There are some night scenes. There are some moments where we did have a lot of lighting to work with. We were sponsored by Westcott. The Film Riot fellas helped get a Westcott sponsorship, which meant we primarily used their lighting. And we had some 2x1 panels that we primarily used as our key lights. And so with that film, we knew going into it that Westcott was going to be a big part of it. And I'm grateful that they were, because what they provided for that film, we couldn't have done it without.
I know that a lot of people struggle with what gear do I need, or what should I use for this film? That's something that I like to think about gear probably too much. I probably place too much importance on it. And I saw in the notes of Low Country that you had a C300 and Rokinon Cine Primes. I don't know. I thought that was surprising, because Rokinon, sometimes they get people kind of like to hate on them, but that looked perfect. It was one of those films where I kind of got lost in the story, so I couldn't even focus too much on the lighting, and I had to rewatch parts of it to say, okay, this is what the lighting looks like, this is the lenses. I don't know. What are your thoughts on gear, owning gear? Is it important? Do you have any go-to things, or are you just like, hey, I'm going to do the best with whatever they give me? Because you've worked on a variety of different levels of projects, from low-budget shorts to being on set with Iron Man 3.
Sure. Yeah, and to be specific with my Iron Man experience was as a lighting tech, so certainly got to play with a lot of larger fixtures that I rarely use in my DP career. Most of the things I shoot are on an independent level. Usually, $1 million or less is a great rough estimate of how to think of these productions when it comes to independent features. That's kind of the average range. So all that to say, while something like Iron Man, you would have larger fixtures, plenty of 18K, 20K, 100K soft suns. On the short film side, what we look at is we get excited about a script and an idea and how to execute it, and then we say, well, most of the time, again, for Justin and Shea, in the things we've done together, it's, we don't have much money. What are the relationships we have? How can we leverage this opportunity for others who want to be a part of it? And so Low Country and was an example of those were the tools at our disposal, and we jumped in. I didn't have any complaints, and I'm also not a DP who focuses on the nitty gritty of every lens test. I just haven't found the passion in that side of the experience. I like to come at it from, here's a script, here's the tone. This should feel very clean. This should feel very dirty. This should feel very gritty because it's a dark story. This should feel very clean and bright because it's a Christmas movie, or because it's it's a commercial for a brand and the client wants a bright, clean, beautiful, smooth look. And I think that's when I look at the other side of it and then search for the equipment that best utilizes those ideas when it comes to lenses, when it comes to camera and things like that. So for the short film side of it, having the Rokinon lenses nearby, it was a great comfort. I've found them great to use, and I love the Canon C series, both the C100, the C200, C300. Having used all those cameras, the ND system seems to give a really specific look, and Low Country was a film where we stopped down on the ND most of the time. And, I think that also informs the look, is the color and the tone of the internal camera ND filters of those C-series cameras from Canon. And, I've loved them and been very happy. And then, when there's a choice, Arri cameras have been on a roll. I've been very happy with the Alexa, the Amira, and the Alexa Mini in the last handful of years. And I also want to be someone who's open to change and being shown a better avenue. Andrew Bradford has been my first AC on many productions, and the majority of them in the last 3 or 4 years. And he is very good about the tech side of it, and that's what makes him a good first AC and a good DP, and that works for him. And having that relationship in my professional career has helped me, and in the ways where I'm not as focused on the tech side, I can turn to him and say, hey man, do you think we can find lenses like this nearby? Or do you think, what do you think of when you see this? I'm looking for a lens that looks like this, that, or the other. And he's the kind of guy who's seen the lens test and, has seen the blogs that post about a new lens or a new thing. And so, again, having a network of people who can fill in your weaknesses and build you up as you build them up is so crucial to all of it, all the gear questions to me.
That's awesome. So I've noticed in your work, at least the work that I've seen the most probably has been the work you've done with Justin Robinson and Shea Sizemore, like you've mentioned. You guys obviously have developed an awesome team there. And I notice that a lot of the work you do is very performance-driven. Like I said before, like you kind of forget about the camera work because you're so invested in what the characters are doing. Is that, I don't know, the closest thing I could think of is kind of like David Fincher, where the camera will move slightly up to follow the action. It's not like cameras are spinning around. Is that your style? Is that something you collaborate with the directors and figure out on the way? How do you develop the style that you have? Where do you seek inspiration for that?
I think that you're correct about those short films that you're describing. That specifically, they're very static camera positions. They, it's just a series of portraits in many ways. And my views as a DP when it comes to how to collaborate with a director is: are we speaking the same language? Is what you're pitching exciting? And I want to get collaborating with you. And to me, I think there will always be a piece of me in all the things, and I think there will be moments where that looks like something Brent would do. But at the same time, I try hard to challenge myself in the projects I take and in the opportunities available to us. A lot of the latter films that Justin and I have done together have had zoom lenses in them. The last two shorts have had zooms in the film. Some productions with Shea that I've done, we did 2 features together that we incorporated dolly much more than we did on our early short films that were very, very static. Especially Shea and I, we fall into that portraiture very easily together. And what I'm interested in is, are we excited about the story? And I don't look at myself as this is my style. I don't try to veer away from it. If there's a car commercial that that speaks to me and it's a collaborator I want to work with, I want to jump in there and I want to do a production that if it's required, great, it's completely handheld, it's running around, it's, a Russian arm, it's following the speed and the action of the story. To me, I'm interested in telling the story and I want to get the story out. So if that's static camera positions and that's what the story requires, let's fold into it. If the story requires movement and lots of it, let's find a way to do it. I want to know that we're serving the story as best as possible with the camera, and I want to be hidden as much as possible unless the camera needs to be a character in a certain moment. I want to be very intentional about what the camera's doing and to serve the project as best as possible.
Well, I think you do that wonderfully because I'm pretty much everything you do, I'm just very emotionally involved in what's going on, and you're killing it. So,
and listen, I'll say this: it's a sacred dance when you're working with an actor. There's nobody else on that set is putting their face, their emotions, a piece of themselves on the screen in perpetuity like an actor will.
Yeah.
And when you are working with an actor, the utmost respect needs to be observed from that side of it. And I'm not saying, the tone of the set needs to be of full reverence of whatever the actor wants to do this, or you have all these different power dynamics that come into it based on the level of production. But what I'm saying is know the vibe of the set. If you're working with an actor or multiple actors who work better by feeling it out, by really pushing back on some of the blocking, be open to that as a DP, as a director, if they're the right person for the role. And the onset is, well, we can't set that light there for the shot because I think the character would do this, or I would run over and do this. Maybe the director has a pushback and dials it in completely. Great. Maybe the director says, yeah, that's an amazing note. That's going to make the story better. I think you have to be open to all of the changes that are possible and all the things that are possible, especially when it comes to the acting. So blocking is so important, and feeling it out. Even if you have the shot list, even if you have all this prep, you need to still stand it up and see if it will stand on the foundation you've built. I'll say this, as a DP, I view it as my job to come over-prepared, to have an extensive shot list, and then when I get to set, to be ready to throw it all away if we're in a moment and we're seeing something beautiful and the story's being told in a powerful way. Because it's not a waste to not do the shots that you planned on doing. And this rarely happens where you throw everything away. But I use that extreme metaphor to say you should come in with a plan, know the story, put the story in your heart, and if you are open to learning more about the story, it should change. You should add, we need to add 2 shots because look at how this beautifully plays out. I saw it in my head one way when I read it. I see it another way when we do a table read. Now I'm seeing it another way as the actor is performing in front of me. This is the story now, and when it gets to the edit, that will also tell you something about the story. So there are many different directors. So, again, Justin is a director of precision and intentionality, and usually what he plans is the final product because he hones it into the exacting nature of it. And Shea is a different kind of director. The things flow and come and go, and both of those are the right decision because they work for both of them as collaborators. And that's the beautiful thing about making a film, is that all of it can ebb and flow, and some of it is in step, in sync to precision, and others are, it's a little more easygoing. And I think that should inform, how you operate, and it informs how I operate as a DP.
I love that. I know we've been talking about you as a DP most of this time, but you also direct and DP feature films. So it's not like you're just a one-trick pony. You you do it all. So you speak with experience of direction. How did you get into directing, I have directed and somewhat DP'd shorts of my own, and I know that is an exhausting thing. And they're like 5-minute shorts.
Yeah.
How do you handle directing and DPing feature films that have a lot on the table?
Yeah, I think what I can say about that is Gary Wheeler, a producer who I've worked with for years and who's become a friend after all these years. We found ourselves in an opportunity where I was shooting a film where our director wasn't available, and all of a sudden I had the most knowledge of the story. I had the most prep put in, and kudos to him. He said, well, why don't you direct it? It's 15 days. It's this one the locations back and forth. I work hard to have a great rapport with actors as the DP, and it was a great opportunity to learn more about working with actors specifically and making sure that they have what they need to perform and to live in that story. So it's really been specifically through that relationship with Gary that I've directed and DP'd 4 films now. The projects that Gary has been getting off the ground have primarily been Western. The corporate term could be Western adjacent, because we did a film called Blue Ridge. We did a film called Legal Action. We did Shea directed a film called County Line. Those are all present day, but they have a Justified, Longmire, Yellowstone. The tone of those is very much present in these features. But then we also did The Legend of 5 Mile Cave and The Warrant, which are period piece westerns, and I think they're they've done well, and that genre is having a renaissance right now, and it's been an honor to be a part of it. Insofar as The Legend of 5 Mile Cave shot at Old Tucson Studios, where John Wayne shot Rio Bravo, McClintock. Parts of The Quick and the Dead, Sam Raimi's film, shot there. Parts of Tombstone, parts of Silverado. It's many great westerns touched upon that ground in Tucson, Arizona, and to shoot in that same place alone was such a great experience. And to be able to utilize sets that have since been repurposed, but still have the ghosts of film crews past were certainly there in terms of the tone and just walking down the streets and seeing different angles built up in that way. And the advantage of independent filmmaking is just finding the right location that you can steal, so to speak, to get the thing made, and to have a fully built out stage city to work in that and learn from that shooting experience was invaluable. I've been grateful for having that opportunity. I'm reticent to call myself a director because outside of that world, I think it would have to take a really exceptional story for me to say, yeah, I can direct this, and let go of the DP role, or maybe it is still a director DP role. I think about the future, and all I know is I never saw this opportunity in the future, and I don't want to look any further than this moment that I'm in right now and say, this has been a great opportunity, and if more come along that makes sense, I'd love to. But at my core, I'm a cinematographer, and that's how I identify.
If you were to put the dream into words, are you someone who looks forward, like, I want to shoot feature films, and that is the dream? Or are you someone who kind of finds the dream on your way?
I think it's a little bit of both. I work hard to put in the time and to network and to find the best people to work with. I think I always want to work with the highest caliber person in terms of they're as obsessed as I am with filmmaking. Yeah. And I think that's probably as simple as the goal is. I think it's led me to this place, and I'm grateful for it. But also, even though I identify as a cinematographer, I just made that statement. I more identify as a husband and as a father, and as having a life outside of the film industry as well, and that's very important to me. And right now, I'm more scared about being a good parent than whatever the next feature is or whatever the next production is. I'm trying to find that balance and live a life that that is full on both sides. It can be very hard to do in a film industry that can require long hours and can require very short notice on shooting schedules and deadlines and production timelines. And having a family within that is work, but I'm willing to do the work. And so that's me saying that I haven't figured it out yet. I don't know that I have that balance, but I'm looking at that, and I think that's probably my dream right now. And hopefully that will also inform the stories I want to tell and the opportunities that are afforded to me.
That's awesome. I think that's something I respect a lot about a lot of the filmmakers on the show is they live where they are, or they're working the way they do because they have families, and that is very important to them. And I think that, it obviously should be. Family is one of the most important things in this life. So I think that's really cool that you're combining your dream, your passion, with also the dream of having, a successful family. That kind of sounds weird. That's not the phrase I'm looking for, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
I guess. There's a couple other questions. I know that filmmaking is very personal to you. It's something that you love. You found meaning in it. I'd like to talk a little bit about your collaboration with Justin Robinson on his documentary, My Brother Jordan, because I know you were involved with that as well. I don't know if I've seen a more personal documentary and hard-hitting piece than that. How was it like being involved with that documentary?
Well, I can say that I was a part of several interview segments, but Justin is obviously due the credit on everything in there and everything about that production, because it's so personal. Those are films like My Brother Jordan are the reason that I'm a filmmaker, and the reason that I pursue it is because Justin, who's put in almost a decade into that film and has the amount of time that he's thought about it, he's lived and breathed it for so long. It's his life. It's so again, it's so personal, and there's really not much like it that I've been a part of. And again, being a part of it, I use loosely because I think there's a handful of us who had an opportunity to touch it, and that's I'm grateful that I got to watch a storyteller continue to be in love with the thing that he's doing amongst an immense pain and amongst a very difficult story to tell. It's just a beautiful example of the human condition and a beautiful example of what we can be and what we can do as humans. The example of Jordan Robinson is he's a character in a movie right now to a certain extent. I think I'll take that liberty to say when you find a character in a movie that you want to be like, that someone like Jordan Robinson, I want my sons to grow up and have the values that Jordan Robinson did, and to leave a legacy like he did, to have a brother that he affected so much that he couldn't do anything else but make a movie about him for years. That to have that effect on the world around you in your small community, that says everything I need to know about Jordan, about Justin, and that says everything I want to see in myself and in my boys and in my own legacy. And maybe legacy is not the right word. I think it's more, how should we be treating each other? What kind of people do we need to be? And I think this movie adds to the nuance of that conversation that changes every day and is different for everybody. But the constant is Jordan Robinson was a man among men, and he deserves revered in this way. And this movie doesn't put him on a pedestal, but it shows the power of kindness. It shows the power of hard work and having a calloused mind, a mind that is dedicated to excellence in the thing you want to do. I mean, there's so many little stories within this one short movie. I mean, there's so many things about that production that don't make sense if you're looking out of a film school notebook or somebody's film festival guidelines. Well, your film should be this long. It should have this sort of act structure. It should do this, should do that. Justin's a talented filmmaker and he knows all that, but the film that came out is the right film because it came from Justin and it came from the core, and that's what the film needed to be.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, I don't know if I've been touched by a documentary as much as I have my brother Jordan, and so thank you for your contribution to that film because it's literally helping change the world to be a little better place. I mean, it's getting so many views. It's past 11 million now. That's cool, man, to be able to tell that kind of story and be a part of it. I know that you talked about Justin's, I guess, work ethic or whatever to create this thing, but you also have done a lot of work and pumping out feature after feature, short after short. How do you stay motivated? How do you keep going? And how do you balance that type of work with the family that you have that's really important to you?
The best part of new productions is, everything up until day one of the shoot, because everything is possible. Every idea can be executed. Every dream can be lived in just a little bit longer. And then you get to reality and things, start to decay. And then you realize what's in front of you. And that's, it sounds negative, but I think it's just, it's important for me to look at that reality of the things we make. There's always something that's not quite 100%. I wish I was better prepared with who to correctly attribute this quote to, but on the Mark Maron podcast, a psychedelic painter was on the podcast talking about his process over the years, over his prolific career as an artist. And he talked about when he was young, he had this idea and he would put it onto canvas, and maybe 40% of that idea made it from his mind to creation into the real world. And he jumped ahead to himself currently and said, right now I'm probably at 85% of what's in my mind makes it to canvas. And that's an important story. While it's certainly paraphrased on the numbers and the style, but what I take from that and what I keep with me is that ideas are powerful, ideas are important, and at the same time, communication more than anything is important. Film industry or otherwise, communication is how we exist together. And are we able to share in the nuance of life, and to be able to have that mental foundation of all these things that we work so hard to do when you have a family. The time at home that you're not on set may still not be your own time, because you've given your mind the right to think about the production still when you're at home, thinking about that next shot, thinking about that next thing. I've had these great opportunities the last few years where I've been able to work closer to home on the features that I shoot and still be a part of my kids' everyday life in person. And that is by design. The difficulty is by design. And I choose to work through those difficulties and try to find a way to put in the work in both those places. So my big paraphrased metaphor there is the mind, the space. What lives in your mind is an important thing to be able to get a rein in on. And again, when we talk about balance is a daily bar to reach. Yeah. Some days you'll do more work and your family will suffer. Some days you'll have that extra time with the family and you'll forget about the work, and then maybe something suffers the next day. And I'm certainly talking specific contextually to work hours and how they meld together with family, but hopefully the universal thing to take away is that it's never easy. It's never meant to be easy. The good stuff isn't easy.
Yeah.
But finding a way to care for the things that you care about in your passions, in your work life, in your hobbies, and then also thinking about the people in your life who live your life with you outside of those desires, who aren't with you when all of those are being executed. I think that's such an important thing to. How do you take care of the people in your life? That's got to be an important thought, and it's hard not to think about the film, because film is so all-encompassing. And when you have a great idea, when you're on the creative side, it's going all the time.
Yeah.
It's not something that easily turns off. But I'm working on ways to be better at it, and I hope that I continue to fight for that, because it's worth fighting for.
I think that's great advice. I think for whatever career or work you're in, to be intentional both at work and at home, and finding that balance, and just putting the emphasis on working on it is super important advice. If people all over the world kept that advice, the world would be a lot better place. I really appreciate you saying that. I have one last question. I have about 1 million questions I could ask, but I've got one last question so I don't take your entire day. But if you were to give advice to a younger you, what would you tell them about getting started in the film industry? Or, I don't know, what's your nuggets of wisdom you would give to a younger Brent Christy?
Well, younger Brent Christy was a person who was very in his mind, very in his own head about his value and his confidence, and in what was possible, and in who he was, frankly. So I think there's different stages of the identity changes. I think no matter what the stage is, whether it's a very young version of myself that's still in grade school, or that version of myself that's looking at what a career should be like, I don't think I'd say anything. I think knowing what I just said, I think if I just popped up in a time machine to myself, I think I'd just give myself a hug and say, it's gonna be okay. You're gonna find a way. And I think sometimes simple encouragement is enough for me, and I think that's what I would just give myself. I don't think revealing anything or pushing too hard on anything other than let it be. You're gonna find a way.
That's really powerful. I think a little encouragement, like you said, goes a long way. And I have been very much encouraged by the things that you've said on the show, the advice you've given me personally. And just keep doing great work, man. I know you're going to have a ton of opportunities, and I'm excited to see your career through the years. I will follow you, and I know that our audience will follow you as well. Where would you tell them is the best place to follow your work?
Well, BrentChristy.tv. I keep pretty active. Brent.Christy on Instagram is a place where I pop up every now and then with work. But those two places are the best way to go as far as recent work. Again, I had very little to do with it other than to enjoy the process and being able to witness the execution of My Brother Jordan. But that's the thing I'd encourage everybody to take a look at. My Brother Jordan. You can search it. It is the only thing with those 3 words together that is being talked about right now, and you should be able to find it pretty quickly.
For sure. I will leave links in the show notes. So people listening, click on them links, connect with Brent, because he's going to do a lot of awesome stuff as he's continuing to do. So Brent, thanks for being on the show, and it was a pleasure.
Let's do it again, Travis.
And that's it. Thank you for listening. I hope this helps you do great work, be the artist you want to be, and helps you not be afraid to jump in with both feet and make things happen in your film community. Be sure to follow Brent's extensive list of work on Instagram and check out his website to keep up to date with his latest projects. I'll leave a bunch of links in the show notes for you to check out. Remember to leave a review on the show and subscribe however you wish. Those double C thick HDMI cables that I use to keep my guests on the show ain't cheap. Thanks again for listening, and stay tuned for our next awesome guest on the Hometown Hollywood podcast.
And can I be untied? That's the important thing. Can I leave the basement?
Untie.
Can I go home?
Unleash the Kraken.
Oh my gosh, this is a script in and of itself. I had to do a podcast for my life, and I'm freed.